this is Steven. I am going to continue my discussion about the new adventures of He-Man action figures from Masters of the Universe Classics by Mattel. Today I intend to cover the evil mutants, meaning the enemies of the Galactic Guardians, or at least the characters I have at this point in time. So just like with the Galactic Guardians, we're going to start with the figure of the leader of the evil mutants, that would be Skeletor, how he should have looked like, or at least what was the idea of how he should have looked like before the new adventures of He-Man cartoon even started. This is a Laserlight Skeletor, who is coming together with the Laserlight He-Man, who was already covered in my previous video. And his action feature is also to have a light-up weapon like He-Man, and except in his case the light-up weapon is the translucent Havoc stuff he's holding. So again, the same idea like with He-Man. When we press the button, his hand holding the, if you can see it, the eyes will light up, and the hand holding the Havoc stuff will light up as well, bright red, which kind of looks white to you guys on my camera, but it's actually bright red. So he also comes with a removable hood that shows robotic parts at the back of his skull, very detailed. After a while the lights turn off by themselves. And I would assume that the head is removable, but I'm not really trying to do it. So far I didn't. But his armor is not removable due to the fact that he has, just like He-Man, this enormous battery compartment built into the back of him, and therefore the cape is not removable. Only the hood, which I already showed here, only the hood is removable. And the fact is that due to the fact that as I said that the knapsack is there, the armor is therefore not removable, and the cape is not removable. He also have at least a little bit more articulation than He-Man due to the fact that he's able to move his arms and legs, and the knapsack itself does not impede as much his movements, especially the movements of his arms. His arms can move, and the legs as well, and both of them have articulation, and he's able to take to twist in the waistline as well. And he only had one appearance in the mini comics that belonged to the classic series, but in the old toy line he never had any appearance. And just like He-Man, the vintage version of Laserlight Skeletor was only available in the back in the 80s. It was only available in certain countries such as France, Spain, Italy, Germany, and I believe Austria as well. The vintage version of He-Man and Skeletor, the Laserlight versions, the vintage ones, are quite expensive, and only if you're lucky to find them at good prices, because they were made in such small numbers and only available in certain countries. So that would be the original look, or the original idea of what Skeletor would have looked like in the actual new cartoon series back in the late 80s. But instead, Mattel came up with a slightly different look that still in a way resembles Laserlight, but with some upgrades to him. For example, or actually to elaborate on my point, this is the actual new adventures of He-Man Skeletor, the way he would look after his transformation when he landed on Primus, planet Primus. He came with this updated version of his Havoc stuff that looks quite different from the Havoc stuff itself. It has this enormous skull on top of it that resembles his face and has all these lightning rods sticking all over the place, and at the end it has an actual blade molded in, and it's a very long, quite a long stuff. Now of course his helmet is removable just like the Laserlight, and also just like Laserlight he has all sorts of robotic parts built in the back of his skull. His eyes do not light up because this version of Skeletor does not have any light up features and no battery compartments, but he does come with a large cape. The skull can be removed, the head can be removed. He has articulation just like most figures, and the detail on his armor is quite amazing, including the belt and the boots, which look very robotic, but it's still he's still portrayed with the 3 toes like his classic version. But it's more it's more futuristic looking in appearance. So there is quite a bit of detail in the mold itself on the armor he's wearing, and the boots, and the helmet as well. The helmet looks quite detailed as well. So he was given a complete makeover in the way he looks for that particular series. And I'll just show you how they look side by side, meaning the laser light Skeletor and New Adventures of He-Man Skeletor. So that's how they look like side by side. They're very similar in appearance, but yet different in other regards. When it comes to their weaponry, and some of their attire is slightly different between them. So this version of Skeletor showed up in the old cartoon series, the New Adventures of He-Man cartoon series, and this was not his only look. He had at least 2 more looks. 3 different versions of him were produced in the New Adventures of He-Man vintage toy line. This is just one of the 3. There is at least 2 more, which are different in the armor, and you can still tell it's Skeletor, but it's different in armor and weapons. For the moment, this is the only one that was released based on the old line. The next one we have is what is considered a character to be either first or second in command to Skeletor. He was first before Skeletor arrived. This is the leader of the evil mutants, called Flog. He's been leading the evil mutants for countless ages before Skeletor showed up, and in a way took over the leadership, or at least shared leadership with Flog. Flog is here made to look exactly the way he looked in the vintage New Adventures of He-Man toy line, and the only major difference is that he's more updated in the sense of height, and articulation is better than the old line, and the fact is that there is a great deal of detail all over his armor, including the weapon. The weapon is this futuristic style whip, which also came with him in the vintage figure, that has this long string and an actual small mini mace at the end. His weapon is sporting a little computer buttons that he can press in order to, I guess, extend the whip or make it bigger or better or longer or what have you. And it can be put on his hand, on either of his hands. The armor he's wearing is removable. The helmet he's wearing is not removable because it's molded onto his head, but the head can be removed. He also has, like I said, a great deal of detail, especially if you look at the back of him on the armor itself, and there is all these pouches that he has around his belt, where he can store all sorts of things. I am assuming weapons or similar, small mini weapons or something of that sort. So he's very detailed in every sense of the word, and he looks quite an improvement over the old figure, which I don't have. If I did, I would have showed you the comparison between the two. But yes, this is Flog, and he had quite a prominent appearance in the old cartoon, including the vintage line, and include the New Adventures of He-Man comic books as well. In a way, I would say, or I would consider him to be sort of an equivalent of Beastman. He is not quite smart all the way, but he's also but on the other hand, he can be cunning. And he's usually not very pleased with sharing power or leadership with Skeletor, so that's why I kind of consider him in a way very similar character to Beastman. There is one lady who is on side of Skeletor in the New Adventures, and that would be this lady right here. She comes with a very weird looking laser rifle that you can see here. Practically she's an equivalent of Evelyn. She's a redhead, and she's a sort of a warrior woman. I do believe she also comes, yes, she comes also with 2 other weapons. I do believe she also knows some dark magic, because she comes with this crystal power staff. And she also came with another diamond or crystal whip that has the same diamond or crystal at the end of it. And this one is made completely out of plastic, so it's not bendable or anything. Her head is removable, and she has articulation which is somewhat destroyed in the process due to the fact that she has this molded cape at the back of her, which practically impedes these arms of being moved properly in a 360 degrees motion. Due to that factor, she's not able to move her arms much. Now, one way to solve this problem would have been to make this cape make it out of a cloth and make it out of a softer plastic, or the other way would be a more drastic solution, to simply cut along the arms, to completely cut off the cape and simply remove it, which many people are not willing to do. Or maybe even a third solution would be to just cut it along the middle, so that her arms can move much more than they can right now. I am not too impressed with the rifle. It's a laser futuristic rifle, but she just looks rather ridiculous with it. I'm not too impressed with it, and most of her weapons look kinda odd. I do, however, like this magic stuff, so probably that's one thing I should be displaying her with. She has at least decent articulation, or proper articulation, in the legs, and limited articulation in the arms due to the fact, as I already stated, because of the cape, the head can be removed. She did had an appearance in the New Adventures of He-Man cartoon series, and she was usually side by side with Skeletor, causing trouble to the Galactic Guardians. Now, on to the actual warriors that serve under Skeletor and Flog, the actual evil mutants. We're going to start with Calamari here, although he has another name, so Calamari is just one of the names that I know him by. Calamari being the name used in Europe. Calamari here is sort of a swamp creature who lives in the swamps of the planet adjacent to Primus, where the evil mutants live. And he's been part of the cartoon series of the New Adventures of He-Man, always bungling every job he's being given. He's quite aggressive, but the thing is, he's not very smart. He does come with weapons, such as this harpoon gun, very futuristic looking in appearance. The only other interesting thing about it, when you pose it like this, it's an actual laser gun. But if you hold it by the bottom of the handle, then it's an actual electronic axe, battle axe. So it's a double weapon in one. Aside from that, he comes with these detachable claws, robotic claws, and he comes with an actual water helmet that has a little knob at the back here, which I believe is used that you can simply fill the helmet. You can fill the helmet with water. In other words, to mimic his old action feature, because he was made in the old toy line. You can mimic his feature where he's able to have actual real water inside his helmet, because he lives in the swamps and such. In a way, I would assume, or based on his looks and his abilities, that he's a sort of a futuristic version or an equivalent of Merman from Eternia. So most of these bad guys, you can kind of compare them to the actual Eternian evil warriors. Each of them have something similar to the guys over there, if not the looks, but the personality or the abilities. He was one of the first New Adventures of He-Man bad guys that was released in the Classics line, way back at the beginning of the line, and I think he looks pretty good. He was made to look exactly like his vintage appearance, and he's a good addition to anybody's collection if you are into New Adventures of He-Man like I am. I do understand that some people are not into it, but I still like it because it's still a representation of He-Man. It's part of the whole He-Man lore. So that's as far as Calamari here goes. Now the next character that also had plenty of appearances in the New Adventures of He-Man cartoon is Optic. Now Optic is again an equivalent of Triclops, I would say. He came with two different heads, both of them are shaped like eyeballs. This is one of them. But I do have another one that's exactly the same, except the color of the eye itself is green. So there were two different heads that one could use. He comes with an actual futuristic looking shield and an actual futuristic looking rifle. He is on the side of the evil mutants. He appeared in numerous New Adventures of He-Man comics, the vintage ones, including the cartoon series and including the toy line that existed back then, so his appearance remained unchanged. He was made to look exactly the same as his vintage counterpart. The head is removable, the armor is removable as well, and there is, again, just like with Flog, there is a great deal of detail in his armor and in his equipment, from the armor itself to the weapon and the shield. And he's one of the classic supporting characters of Skeletor and Flog, so he plays an important part when it comes to the bad guys, being part of the gang. Now the final character I have from the evil mutants for now is Karate. Karate is practically looking a lot, or resembles to some extent, Predator in a way. At least to me he resembles one. And in a way, again, he looks to me more like a galactic bounty hunter because of his appearance and the sophisticated weaponry he's carrying. He has this machete, futuristic machete, in his arm that looks like this. It's black in color. That's one of his weapons. And why is he called Karate? Because the vintage version of this toy could do an action kick with his leg when pressing a button at the back. So that's why it's like he knows martial arts moves. Just like Calamari, he has a weapon that can be transformed into two different weapons. So this is his laser rifle that has a support for the arm, and this is how it looks on this side. But if he was to hold it like this, then you can see the blade here, and it becomes automatically a laser battle axe of a sort. But I usually display him by just having him hold it as an actual laser rifle, sort of a weapon that he keeps by the side. The head is removable, the armor seems to be removable as well. Aside from that, the articulation is pretty much the same as most of the other characters from the toy line, and again there is a great deal of detail on his armor and the weapons themselves, and especially at the back here where he has lots of compartments and other mechanical parts that are molded very well into the costume. And he did have an appearance in the old comics and the cartoon series and in the vintage toy line of the New Adventures as well. So these are the only figures I have from the Evil Mutants so far, because the rest were not made yet. There is an upcoming character that's coming by Super 7, the company who's going to continue the He-Man classics, and that will be Quake. Quake is another evil mutant, and if I ever get a hold of him, then I will do an additional or a brand new review of all of these guys plus him. But for now, this is all for the moment. I hope you guys enjoyed this coverage of the throwback to the New Adventures of He-Man, and that you will continue following me on YouTube, because I intend to post further reviews of the classics characters, at least the ones I have in my collection. And that will be just about it for now. I do appreciate you guys watching this video, and if you like to see more, please subscribe, and if you like to leave a comment, feel free to do so, and I'll catch you guys later. Thank you. See you again later. Bye.